The campaign backing one of two abortion rights initiatives is ending its push to put a question on the statewide ballot this fall.
Missouri Capitol Bureau Chief Joe McLean takes us through how this shapes the next 10 months.
This was branded by some as a sort of middle ground policy. It would have allowed abortion up to the 12th week of pregnancy and included exceptions for cases of rape and incest. But this did not have the backing of the major abortion rights groups, who said there's really no room for a middle ground here. There's now only one campaign to put an abortion rights question before voters. It would bring Missouri back to the standards set by Roe v. Wade, allowing abortion up to the point of viability, and otherwise a ban on any government intervention in reproductive health care. On Thursday, the competing abortion campaign ended its push for a spot on the ballot, with director Jamie Corley, a conservative, saying in a statement, quote, "We started this group to restore access to women's health care. Having two initiatives on the ballot would create confusion and potentially split the vote. No one wants that." The group also indicated it plans to unite behind the single petition and work to lift the state's ban. A spokesperson for anti-abortion group Missouri Stands with Women said in part, quote, "Our coalition was prepared to inform Missourians on why they should decline to sign both pro-abortion petitions, so now we'll be working twice as hard to defeat one petition instead of two." Democrats, meanwhile, applauded the move.
People want access to the doctor, and they want to be able to control their own reproductive health care and all health care, and don't want politicians deciding things for them when it comes to their own personal health.
And meanwhile, efforts are still underway by Republicans to fortify the process to change the state's constitution by August. They continue to contend that the only way voters would approve abortion rights is if they were tricked into doing so.
If you can spend $60–70 million, as we saw like in Ohio, to deceive people into what they're actually voting for, I think it shows the problem and the loophole that we do have.
If Republicans are successful, voters would be asked in August whether they want to make the Constitution more difficult to amend. And then they'd be asked about abortion rights in November under the more strict standards. In Jefferson City, Joe McLean, WGEM News.